Okay, and there's plenty more here. And his wife dies, and he has a second wife, and then I don't know what happened to her, and then he marries a third one, a younger one, which is the source of Western people, Christians, etc., or trolls or whatever, pointing the finger at Muhammad, saying, oh, he was this, he was that, because he married her so young. So it's recommended by Rabbi Tobias Singer on one of his videos for the best information from a Muslim, famous Muslim cleric, is Al-Tabari, because apparently he knew the Quran at a very early age, say 9, something like that. He can recite every word of it apparently. Don't know how he'd do that, because listen to this audio here, which is 11 hours long and in English. Imagine it in the Arabic, and that guy knowing that completely, right? So this guy Al-Tabari is supposed to be the best one to actually learn from. His most influential and best known works are his Quranic commentary, known as in Arabic as Tafsir Al-Tabari, and his historical chronicle history of the prophets and kings, Tariq al-Rasul wa al-Muluk, often referred to as Tariq al-Tabari. I think this is what Tobias Singer was saying, that Christ wasn't the Messiah, etc. He was a prophet, like he was the highest Rasul in Islamic thought. Al-Tabari followed the Shafi'i madhab for nearly a decade before he developed his own interpretation of Islamic jurisprudence. What is that? Often described as a human understanding and practice of the Sharia, that is, human understanding of the divine Islamic law is revealed in the Quran and the Sunnah, etc. Al-Tabari's school of thought, madhab, flourished among Sunni ulama for 2 centuries after his death, before it eventually became extinct. It was usually designated by the name Jariri. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the relationship with the younger Aisha, okay? That all the Westerners, Christians, etc., the trolls, scholars, whoever, pointing the finger at and saying, oh, he was this, he was that. Okay. Here's your full name there, also transcribed as Aisha. Was Muhammad's third and youngest wife. In Islamic writings, her name is thus often prefixed by the title of Mother of the Believers, referring to the description of Muhammad's wives in the Quran. Aisha had an important role in early Islamic history, both during Muhammad's life and after his death. In Sunni tradition, Aisha is portrayed as scholarly and inquisitive. She contributed to the spread of Muhammad's message and served the Muslim community for 44 years after his death. She is also known for narrating 2,210 hadiths. In Islam refers to what the majority of Muslims believe to be the record of the words, actions and the silent approval of the Islamic Prophet Muhammad, as transmitted through chains of narrators. In other words, the hadith are transmitted reports about Prophet Muhammad, what he said, how he was, etc. Not just on matters related to Muhammad's private life, but also on topics such as inheritance, pilgrimage and eschatology. The aspect of Islamic theology incorporating the afterlife and the end of the world, with special emphasis in the Quran on the inevitability of resurrection, the final judgment, and the eternal division of the righteous and the unrighteous. Her intellect and knowledge in various subjects, including poetry and medicine, were highly praised by early luminaries such as Al-Azuri and his student, that name is Her father Abu Bakr became the first caliph to succeed Muhammad, and after 2 years was succeeded by Umar. And supposedly he was it Umar or Oman? Oman. One of them was like, you know, the Islamic or the Muslim army wanted to totally wipe out their oppressors or their attackers, the killers of their many peoples, women and children, etc. But he said, "Come on, man, we're not like that, you know." And he was actually quite a nice guy. Like he let certain Roman officials or whoever they were attacking Jerusalem at the time to leave with as much gold as they could carry. They weren't allowed carts, that sort of thing. They just had to carry it, or if they were allowed to convert to Islam, etc., etc. It was either him or Oman. Okay, and then goes on a bit more about her, and this is what we are trying to get to. She participated in the battle by giving speeches and leading troops on the back of a camel. The Battle of the Camel. Yeah, the Battle of the Camel. Also known as the Battle of Jamil or the Battle of Basra. It took place outside of Basra, Iraq in 36 AH 56 CE. The battle was fought between the army of the 4th Caliph Ali on one side and the rebel army. She ended up losing the battle, but her involvement and determination left a lasting impression. Because of her involvement in this battle, Shia Muslims, second largest branch of Islam, and holds that the Islamic Prophet Muhammad designated Ali ibn Abi Talib as a successor and the Imam after him, most notably at the event of Ghadir Khan, but was prevented from succeeding Muhammad. Yeah. They have a general negative view of Aisha. Afterwards she lived quietly in Medina for more than 20 years, took no part in politics, became reconciled to Ali and did not oppose Caliph Muawiyah. Some traditional hadith sources state that Aisha was betrothed or married or engaged to Muhammad at the age of 6 or 7. Other sources say she was 9 when she had a small marriage ceremony. But both the date and her age at marriage and later consummation, check out the word consummation, what does that mean? In many traditions and the statutes of civil or religious law, the consummation of a marriage, often called simply consummation, is the first act of sexual intercourse between two people, either following their marriage to each other or after a short or prolonged period. Okay, but both the date and her age of marriage and later consummation with Muhammad in Medina are sources of controversy and discussion among scholars, because they're not really sure if that was true or not. They're always debating over it. She was born 613 or early 614, daughter of Ruman and Abu Bakr of Mecca, two of Muhammad's most trusted companions. No sources offer much more information about Aisha's childhood, so there's very little to go on. Marriage to Muhammad. The idea to match Aisha with Muhammad was suggested by Khawla bint Hakim after the death of Muhammad's first wife. After this previous agreement regarding the marriage of Aisha with this other guy here was put aside by common consent, Abu Bakr was uncertain as to the propriety of even legality of marrying his daughter to his brother. Muhammad, however, responded that they were brothers only in religion. British historian William Montgomery Wyatt Professor of Arabic and Islamic Studies at the University of Edinburgh, suggests that Muhammad hoped to strengthen his ties with Abu Bakr. The strengthening of ties commonly served as a basis for marriage in Arabian culture. So it had some motive or agenda behind it. There was no official registration of births at the time that Aisha was born, so her date of birth and therefore the dates of marriage cannot be stated with certainty. Her age is not mentioned in the Quran, All discussions and debate about her age at marriage rely on firstly the various hadith, hadith or athar in Islam refers to what the majority of Muslims believe to be a record of the words, actions and the silent approval of the Islamic Prophet Muhammad as transmitted through chains of narrators. In other words, the hadith are transmitted reports about Muhammad, which are regarded by most Muslims as records of the words and actions of Muhammad and as a source for religious laws and moral guidance, second only to that of the Quran. Unlike the Quran, not all Muslims believe that all ahadith accounts are a divine revelation, and different collections of ahadith are given varied levels of respect by different branches of the Islamic faith. Sunni, various branches of Shia, such as Ismaili and Twelver, Ibadid and Ahmadiyya. Muslims all regard different sets of ahadith as strong or weak in the power of the evidence, depending on their perceived provenance. Aisha's age at the time of her marriage is frequently mentioned in Islamic literature. According to John Esposito, Italian-American academic, professor of Middle Eastern and Religious Studies and scholar of Islamic Studies, who serves as Professor of Religion, International Affairs and Islamic Studies at Georgetown University in Washington, USA. Aisha was married to Muhammad in Mecca in 624 CE after Hijrah. To Medina in the Battle of Badr, the day of the criterion in the Quran and by Muslims, fought on Tuesday 13th March 624 CE. Several scholars interpret this to indicate that she reached puberty at this age, although her age at the time is a subject of dispute. Okay, so there you go. Although her age at the time is a subject of dispute, they're still arguing over it. Al-Tabari says she was 9 at the time of her marriage. Al-Tabari says she was 9 at the time of her marriage was consummated. Sahih al-Bukhari's hadith says that the Prophet married her when she was 6 years old, and he consummated his marriage when she was 9 years old. But all biographical information on Muhammad and his companions was first recorded over a century after his death. But the hadith and seerah, traditionally Islamic biographies of Muhammad, provide records of early Islam, though an unbroken chain of transmission. Various hadith stating that Aisha was either 9 or 10 at the time of consummation came from collections with Sahih status, meaning they are regarded as reputable by most Sunni Muslims. Other traditional sources also mention Aisha's age. The Seerah of Ibn Ishaq, edited by Ibn Hisham, states that she was 9 or 10 years old at the consummation, so they're all verifying that she was quite young. The historian Al-Tabari also states that she was 9. Marriage at this young age was not unheard of at that time, and Aisha's marriage to Muhammad may have held a political connotation, as her father Abu Bakr was an influential man in the community. Abu Bakr, on his part, may have sought to further the bond of kinship to Muhammad and himself by joining their families together in marriage via Aisha. Layla Ahmed, an Egyptian-American scholar of Islam, notes that Aisha's betrothal, or engagement and marriage to Muhammad are presented as ordinary in Islamic literature and may indicate that it was not unusual for children to be married to their elders in that era, because people die young, right? Die in childbirth, die of disease, etc., like that. Okay, so before anyone sticks their finger out and points, ooh, Muhammad was this, Muhammad was that, take into account that apparently Joseph in the New Testament married, or was betrothed, engaged to Mary, who was quite young, maybe 14, 15. Okay, this is according to what we've heard from denominations like the Seventh-day Adventists, who pointed that out. He might have been 44, she might have been 14, but you'd have to go do your personal research on that to prove that it's fact. Aisha's age of marriage, it's been a source of controversy and debate. People arguing over it, and some historians, scholars and writers have revisited the previously accepted timeline of her life. Some writers have calculated Aisha's age based on details found in some biographies, eschewing the traditionally accepted hadith. One hadith recorded in the works of some medieval scholars, including Al-Tabari, states that Aisha's older sister Asma was over 13 at the time of her marriage. Gibril Haddad criticises this approach as relying on a single narrator, and notes that hadith from the same narrator gives a broader range for the age difference between the sisters, using reports on the birth of Fatima as a reference point. The La Mahdiya movement the propagation of Islam, separatist group within Ahmadiyya movement that formed in 1914 as a result of ideological and administrative differences following the demise of Hakim Nur-ud-Din, the first caliph. And scholar, their scholar Muhammad Ali, not the boxer, a different Muhammad Ali, has estimated that Aisha was over 10 years old at the time of the marriage and over 15 at the time of its consummation. Okay, so there's a difference there, but still a minor in today's mindset, according to today's laws, etc., etc., common law. Noting the reference to Aisha's age as either 9 or 10 or the age of consummation, American historian Denise Spielberg, no relation to Steven Spielberg, it's actually Spielberg, American scholar of Islamic history. She is professor of history and Middle Eastern studies at the University of Texas, Austin, and she holds an AB in history from Smith College in 1980 and MA in philosophy, probably a Master of Philosophy, and a PhD, etc., probably in Middle Eastern studies. States that these specific references to the bride's age reinforce Aisha's pre-menarchal status and implicitly her virginity. She notes that Aisha herself seemed to promote the fact that she was a virgin before her marriage to Muhammad as a way to distinguish herself from his other non-virginal wives. This was of great importance to those who supported Aisha's position in the debate of the succession to Muhammad. These supporters considered that as Muhammad's only virgin wife, Aisha was divinely intended for him, and therefore the most credible regarding the debate. And in her relationship with Muhammad, in most Muslim traditions, the first wife is described as Muhammad's most beloved and favoured wife. Sunni traditions places Aisha as second only to Khadija. There are several hadiths or stories about the sayings of Muhammad that support this belief. One relates that when a companion asked Muhammad who was the person you love most in the world, he responded Aisha. Others relate that Muhammad built Aisha's apartment so that her door opened directly into the mosque, and that she was the only woman with whom Muhammad received revelations. They bathed in the same water and he prayed while she lay stretched out in front of him. Various traditions reveal the mutual affection between Muhammad and Aisha. He would often just sit and watch her and friends play with dolls, and on occasion he would even join them. Well, he's a man that can get down on his knees and play with the kids, right? Yeah. Not in that sense. But yeah, whatever activities they're into, he involves himself in. Additionally, they were close enough that each was able to discern the mood of the other, as many stories relate. It is also important to note that there exists evidence that Muhammad did not view himself as entirely superior to Aisha, at least not enough to prevent Aisha from speaking her mind, even at the risk of angering Muhammad. On one such instance, Muhammad's announcement of revelation, permitting him to enter into marriage, is disallowed to other men drew from her Aisha. Okay, from her, the retort: "It seemed to me your Lord, or your God, the Master, hastens to satisfy your desire." Furthermore, Muhammad and Aisha had a strong intellectual relationship. Muhammad valued her keen memory and intelligence, and so instructed his companions to draw some of their religious practices from her.